Hi, this is Carol Baskin, and this is the Cat Chat Show. And today's guest is Clara Lee Arnold. She's from the Hopkins Belize Humane Society. And I was just talking to her out in the lobby and thought, wow, what an interesting person, because you've got so much stuff going on down there and also here in the States. So tell us what you do.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, the Hopkins Belize Humane Society is an organization that I helped form back in 2008, and we're a veterinary clinic. So we do companion animals, although we get brought all kinds of things, as you can imagine, being in a country like Belize where the wildlife is so diverse. And we have come a very long way since our inception in 2008. We run a completely free spay-neuter clinic. We not only hire local veterinarians, but we have visiting vet teams that come from the U.S. and Canada mostly, although they've come from other places as well, to donate their time and efforts to help us with our vet clinics. And in exchange, we give them free housing and take them on tours to see our beautiful country, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. And a couple of years ago, I started working with the Belize Zoo. The Belize Zoo is actually a sanctuary for native animals that cannot be rehabilitated back into the wild. There are some other lovely wildlife organizations in Belize, the Belize Wildlife Referral Clinic, Dr. Isabel, who will treat anything and everything, but that's what she is. She is a treatment facility and then moves them on either to be rehabilitated, to work with another organization called Wild Tracks. They mostly deal with monkeys and manatees, or with the Belize Zoo. So there's a huge effort in Belize to make sure that the animals, both domestic and wild, are being cared for and getting proper care. And because I've always had such a passion my whole life for cats, not just domestic cats, but large cats as well, I was really anxious to work with the Belize Zoo in their jaguar program specifically, but with all of their animals. So a few years ago, I introduced myself to Sharon Matola, the owner of the zoo, and Humberto Wohlers, who is the animal manager. Takes care of all the sort of day-to-day needs of the animals, and started working with them very closely on their zoo projects. And it's been an incredibly rewarding experience.
So you already had the Humane Society down there before you approached the relocation center and the zoo?
Correct. The Humane Society in Hopkins is a small village on the beach, and when we started our clinic, we started doing the free spay neuters in Hopkins and the surrounding areas. And what we've seen is we're now doing this. The animals in Hopkins, we have a wonderful maintenance level with the dogs and cats as well. You can't spay and neuter every single one, or we may theorize that we would like to do that. You can't do that, but what we have is a lovely maintenance level where most of the animals are spayed and neutered. There are still animals that are breeding, but we've tried to help the local population with, okay, if you're going to breed animals, let's try to pick the right traits to breed. Let's try to breed animals that are going to be healthy, animals that are going to have good dispositions, etc. So people travel around Belize, and then they get to Hopkins, they go, something's different here because these animals have hair and they all have collars on and rabies tags, and what's going on that's different here. So I could talk the rest of the afternoon about the Hopkins Belize Humane Society and our free dog food program and our other free education programs, and because I love it. I love what we've been able to accomplish, but I also love that we're now starting to sort of spread out and work throughout the country with other humane organizations and other wildlife organizations, because as I think we know as rescuers, but it isn't always obvious to maybe people in the public that how closely related the domestic population and wildlife population truly are, and how much they depend on each other for for success. If you've got too many feral cats in an area, then it's definitely going to hurt the wildlife population. So, I try to address that issue throughout Belize, because wildlife is a huge importance to the government, to tourism, to lots of people's livelihood. Wildlife is huge, whereas dogs and cats maybe not so much. And I've been able to sort of connect them in a way that makes sense for everybody.
How did you get involved?
How I got involved in the Humane Society in Belize. Like so many people, I went on vacation. I had been in the humane industry since 1990. I was the director of the Oxford Lafayette Humane Society in my hometown of Oxford, Mississippi from 1991 to 2001. So I've always had this passion, and I went on vacation and saw that the animals were in desperate need. The resort where I was staying, Hamanasi Resort, and I really have to give them a shout out because they are as much a part of our organization as the doctors and everyone else that is involved. I went there on vacation and noticed this issue, and so I asked their then guest services manager. I said, I noticed that you're encouraging your guests to bring supplies for children. Is anyone doing anything about animals? And she said, well, there's an American couple here, Dr. Les Collier and his wife Nancy, and they're wanting to get something going. And I passed over my card and I said, well, I've done it all before, and I've done it in Mississippi, which is very third world-like.
I wasn't going to say it.
So if they would like assistance, I'm happy to try to help, and I can, just be a consult, or I can, really get involved. And I hadn't even made it home before I had an email. And I did tell Nancy Collier, who is the actual original founder, and I said, I'm the kind of person that likes to jump in with both feet. And she said, please, we would love to help. So Nancy Collier, Michael Young, myself, and Hamanasi Resort, because they were perfectly willing to help with housing for vets, transportation, getting them to and from the airport. They provide free tours for us, for our visiting vet teams, which again is a big incentive. I'm trying to convince veterinary teams to give up their vacation time, pay their travel, bring supplies. So I've got to have some incentive besides, and we're going to work 12, 14-hour days, and it's going to be really hot. So Hamanasi Resort will house them and give them, free tours, kayaking and snorkeling and jungle tours and Mayan ruins and all of that fun stuff. So we've got a 100% retention rate on that. And because Hamanasi was so forward in that project, the other resorts along the Hopkins Beach have followed suit. So Jaguar Reef, Villa Verena, a lot of the top end resorts are now also participating and even contacting me and saying, we would like to donate housing, for your next visiting vet team. How can we participate? Because they want to be able to put something like that on their website. They want to be able to say, hey, we're helping the local community. And a little bit more about my local the Humane Society is, I think another thing that has made us so successful is we recognized right away that we would have to hire local people, which is what we did. And we also recognized that we were going to have to appeal to people in a sense of community, because we could not as expats come in and say, you're not treating your dog right, or you're not treating your cat right. Let me tell you how to do that better. That was not going to work. So what we did is we started with small things like, we noticed that you have your dog tied out on a chain and a wire. If we gave you a collar, could we show you how to fit that collar, and it'll make it easier for you to get the dog on and off and more comfortable for him? How do you feel about that? So literally small things like that. We started with children, trying to teach them how to pet dogs. I mean, that sounds so simple to us, but how do I pet my dog? How do I, deal with him where it's safe for him and for me? Because a lot of the dogs were not used to being handled, so they were very snappy. So it was probably 6 months before we even talked about spaying and neutering, because we wanted to connect with them on a personal level with their animals before we started coming in and saying, and now here's what you need to do to cut down your population. We also send children to school. When I go down there, I bring as many clothes, games, toys for children as I do supplies for the animals. I want to make sure that the local village, and then therefore the word starts to spread, recognize us as a community organization, not an animal organization. And I hope I've tried to make that clear, the reason I want that distinction, because we're there to help the entire community, not just we're here to help your dog. When you're dealing with a population that doesn't have access to medical care, but you're there to provide medical care for the cats and dogs, you need to be very cognizant of the fact that you don't want to appear to be helping a population and not helping another one, especially when that population you're not helping would be the people of that community. So we have tried to make sure that everyone understands we're here to help everyone.
That is, that's such a difficult lesson for so many organizations to learn, and yet you seem to have picked up on it really quickly.
We did, and again, I don't know if it was divine intervention, but we picked up on it really, really quickly and recognized we've got to come in here and be part of the community before we change the community. And I think one of the things that really let me know and I'll get goosebumps just talking about it. A few months ago,
I zoom in?
Yes, exactly. A few months ago, I was contacted by a tourist, and that is where I raise a lot of money and a lot of supplies is from tourists. And I was contacted by a tourist that had stayed at Hamanasi Resort, and she said, I wanted to let you know that I am a big believer in paying it forward. And so I had some money saved up, and when I went on vacation, wanted to give that money to a community project that was really making a difference. So I went into the village, and I didn't know this woman. She said, I went into the village, and strolling through the village, I asked people and talked to people, I have some money I'd like to donate. Who should I donate it to? And they all said the Hopkins Belize Humane Society.
Wow.
And she said, I just, wanted you to know that. And I was so surprised. Being in Central America, I didn't hear the church. I didn't hear the school. I didn't hear my brother. I heard the Hopkins Belize Humane Society because they will know what to do with it, and they will take it and make the most impact with it. And that just let me know. I was like, wow,
Gives me goosebumps.
we have managed to really change culture and the way that people in at least our local community are viewing our organization and are viewing our dealing with animals, and they recognize that we're really here for everyone. We're not just here to spay neuter your dog. We're here to help the community be a healthier, happier place for everyone. And if we can do that by assisting you with our free dog food program and our free spay neuter program and our education program that gives your children books and crayons and coloring books and helps send them to school, and I bring school clothing and I bring shoes and I bring backpacks, then if they're associating that with our organization, then
Nice.
that's what I want.
So are all of those services free to them?
We provide everything for free. The only exception is that if you are a dog breeder and you're not spaying and neutering your dog, you must pay our cost for the vaccination. That is our only exception. Again, we're not charging them a profit on the vaccination. You have to travel 2 hours each way to even get vaccinations. So, we provide going and purchasing them for our clinic and bringing them back. But if you are a dog breeder, you must pay our cost to to vaccinate. Once you've spayed and neutered your dog, vaccinations are on HPHS for the rest of the dog's life.
Wonderful.
And,
wow.
and again, while in theory I would love for everyone to spay and neuter their dog, I'm practical enough and recognize that that's not going to happen. So I have to concentrate on, okay, if this individual is going to breed his dog, then let's talk to him about healthy breeding, educate him as a breeder, trying to make sure that his dogs are healthy, so that he is producing animals that are not going to be part of the problem. Sure. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So, yeah. So that's what we've concentrated on, and also I've noticed that even the breeders will say, "Well, this is my last breed, and then I'm going to spay her." So again, we've changed the attitude of we do recognize that's something that needs to be done. Perhaps I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to do it in the future. We are also having breeders that are coming to us saying, I'm selling these 2 puppies, but these 2 I'm going to give away. Will you spay and neuter them before I give them away?
Oh, wow.
That's just the kind of stuff that it's like, oh my gosh, we really got through to them. Wow, that's excellent. So, I see that we've really made a difference. But what I started doing with the Belize Zoo is I contacted them because of my selfish want and need to be involved with large cats and wildlife, because I've always had a passion for that as well. And I said, can we start doing companion animal clinics at the zoo? And they jumped on that. They're very happy for that. They live in an area where, again, there is no vet clinic, there is no veterinary services really available to the people there, and they are not able to afford it. Just pure and simple. So they had a clinic area set up for the wildlife. the Belize Zoo works very closely with Cornell Vet School, and Cornell Vet School sends down teams several times a year to monitor the animal's health, do checkups, do teeth cleanings, do all of those type of maintenance things. So they have a pretty nice little setup there for a clinic. And we just said, can we come in and start doing companion animal clinics? And all we asked in return is that they let us, spend some time with behind the scenes with the animals. And of course, they're happy to provide that anyway. And it's a total win situation, because now every visiting vet team that I have come down says, can we go to the zoo? Can we go to the zoo? It's this excitement again. It's a reward for them to be able to offer their services for that reward of just a little one-on-one time with a jaguar, or with an ocelot, or with a scarlet macaw, or a spider monkey. That's a huge reward for them, and so it's worked brilliant. It's worked out really, really well.
We do corporate retreats out at the sanctuary. And whenever people have their corporate retreat out there, they always say, man, we had 2 or 3 times more people come to this than ever come to any venue that we have at a hotel or whatever. So I'm sure by incorporating the use of the zoo there, or the sanctuary there, you are probably bringing in far more people and exposing them to what's going on there than they would ever see otherwise.
It is, and I think that the zoo is feeling the impact on all levels. Whenever we travel someplace like the zoo, we want to make sure that we're making sure that the employees' animals are being taken care of, almost first and foremost, because, again, we want them to feel part of not only the community that they're working in, but now they're part of our HBHS community. And so we're coming in and making sure that their animals are getting spayed and neutered, or free wormer, or free vaccinations, or whatever they need. And then we also go out into the local community, which very close to the zoo, there are 2 small villages that have huge dog issue problems. But again, just within a couple of years, I'm already seeing such a huge difference in those 2 communities. When I go back, and I go back 2 or 3 times a year, I'll go down the same street. I see the same dog. It's still alive. It's healthy. It's over the mange. I stop and visit with people that I stopped and visited with last time. They still have the same cat. They still have the same dog. They may have adopted or acquired another one, which they want. They want to have treated. So I love that we're now doing maintenance work. I think that's fabulous. And some of the visiting vet teams will say, well, we didn't do as many spays and neuters as we did last time, but we saw twice as many exams. I said, well, that's good. That means that those same families still have those dogs or cats, and they want vaccines. They want to check out the ear that maybe is giving them a problem. They want to treat it for fleas and ticks. And I think what we have learned, what I definitely learned from working in Belize as opposed to working in Mississippi, even though they are similar, as I pointed out, is that...
Do you want some water?
Sure. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up your filming.
No, this is it's very casual.
Okay. Is that in the U.S., we tend to battle the word free. I have so many people tell me that we can't do things for free because then we're not giving value to the animal. The owner needs to take some ownership. They need to feel like that animal has value, therefore they need to pay for the spay, they need to pay for the vaccines, etc. And I bought into that very much back in the early 90s when I was running a shelter. And my attitude has changed. And what I've learned from working in Belize is that I can provide value for that owner by doing free services. And what I mean by that is sometimes I go into these smaller villages, and here is, think of one woman in particular that owned a small shop. She had several children. There was a female dog that was always in the back, always producing puppies, had no hair. She didn't really like the dog because the male dogs would come around to breed with it. And then, then she had all these puppies, and frequently a lot of them died. They had trouble getting rid of the puppies. The kids didn't want to touch the dog because she didn't have any hair. So it was not a pleasurable animal-human experience going on. So when I mentioned spaying the dog, she said, sure, spay the dog. So we brought it back to the clinic. We spayed it. We vaccinated it. I sent home medication for the mange. I sent home, a monthly dewormer. again, I go back 6 months later, and that animal has hair, and it's a beautiful dog. And so now this particular woman, she loves the dog because it's not producing puppies on her back doorstep anymore. The male dogs aren't coming around. The kids like to play with the dog because it has hair, so it's actually become a part of the family. And what that said to me is, I've given that dog value, or rather, HPHS has given that dog value, and we did it by providing a free service. So now she's very interested in the dog and its care and making sure that it's vaccinated and it's dewormed. So I took that back to Mississippi and said, okay, let's do this stuff for free. And they were like, no, can't do it for free. Then it doesn't have any meaning. And I said, no, that's not true. We can provide value to that owner by valuing this animal by providing free services. And another thing I picked up on in Mississippi is I started using the word gift. Instead of doing things for free, we are going to do this as a gift to our community. And in the South, you can't refuse a gift. I mean, Southern hospitality won't allow you to refuse a gift. So that language worked a lot better with my veterinarians, with my Humane Society, with the people we were trying to perform services for. If I'm offering you a gift, then it's much harder for you to refuse it. But if I'm just saying, well, I'll do it for free, the attitude suddenly becomes very different.
Well, that's interesting, because I think also there's a feeling when somebody gives you a gift that you should return to them in some way by taking care of that animal. That's their way of being able to reciprocate.
Right. And what we also saw with, in Mississippi in particular, I think that we've labored under the belief that people didn't want to spay and neuter their animals for so long in the humane industry. Well, people just don't want to spay and neuter their animals. And what I saw recently, when a friend of mine and I decided we were just going to do a World Spay Day event, we were like, we're just going to do one. We're just going to put it together ourselves. And it was going to be one day, and then it quickly grew to two. Next thing I know, we're doing a 6-day event. We did everything for free. All of our veterinarians volunteered their time, and 444 animals got spayed and neutered.
Wow.
And what that said to me is, no, they want to spay and neuter their animals. There's a desire there. But just like in Belize, the economics is just not conducive for them to spay and neuter their animals. They're trying to work their 12-hour shifts. A lot of these are blue-collar workers. They're trying to work their shifts. They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to make sure they can put gasoline in their vehicle to get to and from work. So it's not that they don't care about the animal, and it's not that they even haven't gotten the message that spaying and neutering is important. They just literally cannot afford it. They can probably afford to feed it. They may even be able to, take care of it in an emergency. But that, $250 that's required to spay and neuter their pet, they just, it's something that just keeps getting pushed back in their mind because I can't afford it this week. I can't afford it this month. So we said, okay, well, what if we provide that for you? And tons of people step forward and did that. So that 6-day, 444 animal event was just a real eye-opener, definitely for me and my friend who helped coordinate it. So what we've done since then is we have offered a free cat spay neuter day at least once a month. And again, the response has been amazing. I put the sign-up sheet on Facebook at 10:30 at night. By 6 a.m. the next day it was full. Wow. And we already have a waiting list. And I've been working during our conferences sessions today. I've been trying to arrange, because we have another free one on Tuesday. And I'm trying to get another dog one done as well. As you well know, the output for cats is less. The expense is less than spaying and neutering dogs. So it's not that we don't have this huge interest in spaying and neutering dogs, but the cat ones are a little easier to organize. So I have a vet that is working with us on that. The drugs, the anesthetics is much less for cats.
So all cats are about the same size.
About the same size. It's easier. They're easier to transport. It's been an easier process. So we're continuing to do those, but at the same time trying to work on our dog spays and neuters, because it just requires more space. It requires more people. It requires more time. But it's been an excellent new program that we're trying to implement in Mississippi.
My son-in-law is a veterinarian, and he
Mhm.
works for a low-cost spay and neuter clinic. It's Animal Coalition of Tampa, and they're here today. But there's so much pushback in our community from the veterinary
Mhm.
industry because that's their bread and butter. Do
Sure.
you have that same fight in Mississippi, and do you have that same fight in Belize?
Yes, in both places, but I have managed to make a bridge there in both places with a lot of vets. Now, you're never going to make a bridge with everyone. You just can't. And because I started my career in animals working for veterinarians and then was working for the Humane Society, and I've worked for both at the same time, I realized that there are a lot of course, misconceptions on both ends. I'm generalizing here, of course, but a lot of veterinarians think all Humane Society people are crazy little old ladies in tennis shoes with 50 cats that we smell really bad and we just want to save every cat and dog that we can, and then humane societies tend to think that veterinarians are these huge, money-grubbing fat cats that just want to charge you money for everything that comes in the door. And I think that the actual truth is there's a lot more common ground than we actually think, but those conversations never get started. So that's where I think that my skills have really been able to benefit both programs. Is I'm a good bridge. I'm good at saying, okay, let's try to figure out where the common ground is. The veterinarians want to make money. I get that. I like to pay my bills too. The Humane Society wants to get animals taken care of, but they don't have as much money. But sometimes they're willing to pay something. So let's figure out where we can make this work. So I did the same thing in Belize as I did in Mississippi. In Belize, I was adamant about hiring local veterinarians. At the same time, I was bringing in visiting vets. So I've worked very hard to make sure that the local veterinarian is benefiting education-wise, supply-wise, everything from those visiting vets coming in. So for the most part, they're pretty happy. I've got a few that are grumbling, but I can't hire every vet in the country either. Same in Mississippi. I have several veterinary friends in Mississippi and throughout the U.S. that have gone with me to Belize. And when I wanted to do this World Spay Day event, I called up a friend in Kansas, Dr. Jessica Brown, and I said, hey, remember all those great trips you had in Belize and how much fun it's been? Now I need you to come help me in Mississippi. And without any hesitation, she and her husband and her vet tech came down and worked their tails off for 3 days, spaying and neutering, and they had a blast. I think they really enjoy the whole process, and we all like to feel like we're helping. So same thing. I went to friends in Mississippi, and I said, went first to my Belize veterinary friends and said, all those great times you've had in Belize, I need you to show the love here too. So it's worked out very, very well.
Wow. I think that takes a very special person, and just within a few minutes of meeting you, you're obviously a very good communicator.
Thank you.
So that has served you and the animals well across countries.
Well, when I got my degree in school in communications and political science, and I wanted to be, Diane Sawyer, and also in broadcasting, that was going to be what I was going to do. And it's very difficult to get a job straight out of school as Diane Sawyer, just in case you were wondering. So I went back to my hometown and sort of did that whole thing a lot of college graduates do, like, okay, I've been working towards this goal and I can't get a job. What do I want to do? And the one thing that had been consistent throughout life was love for animals. So I went to my local vet and I said, I'd like to volunteer to work for you. And at that time, this is 1990, there were not too many vets that wouldn't refuse free help. So I started working for him for free. And within a few weeks, I was on the payroll because I loved what I did. And I went back to school to go on to veterinary school. And I was in school. Everything was going okay. But at the time, I really didn't. Even the vet that I worked for, they weren't very happy being vets. They sort of had a chip on their shoulder because the medicine they practice is just as difficult as human medicine, if not more so.
Takes more schooling.
Takes way more schooling. All these different anatomies, different medications, and they certainly didn't get the money that medical doctors get, and they don't get the respect. So at that time, the the vet that I was working for and some of the other vets, they just weren't very happy doing what they were doing. And I thought, do I want to go into a career where I'm going to be miserable? I'm not sure that's what I want to do. And sort of simultaneously, I was approached by the local Humane Society to come start working with them. So here I am, 21 years old, and next thing I know, I'm president of my local Humane Society. But within a few,
it's a hard schedule to keep with your schooling.
Yeah. So I'm working for a vet and working with the Humane Society as well. And again, I really look back now and think, thank goodness for that. And the director of the Humane Society then was a lawyer. And so I learned a lot from her about the correct way to do things. And I'm very grateful for that education that I got early on. But I decided that I could use the skills that I had learned in school, communications. I love to do fundraising. I love to go talk to donors. I love to do that kind of thing. And I thought, I think I'd be better off helping animals in a humane arena than in a veterinary arena. And of course, since then, I know tons of happy vets. I know many, many people that love what they do. And every once in a while, I wish that I did have the skill and capability of picking up the scalpel and doing whatever it is myself. But for the most part, I really think that I found the right avenue for me. I think that I have found a way to help even more animals than I would have if I had, excuse me for saying this, just been a vet. That I have found a way to recruit vets, and I work with vets, and I work with animals, and I do what I love, and I help way more animals than if I were just an individual that was able to perform the surgery and if I were working in a clinic. So I don't regret not having gone to veterinary school.
You mentioned that you like talking to donors and fundraising, and if you're giving everything away for free, then you've got to be raising a lot of money. How much do you have to raise?
Our annual budget for HBHS, no, don't mind at all. Our HBHS budget is around $90,000 US a year, and that is everything. I mean, that's my equipment budget. That's staff budget. That's salaries. That's everything. I am fortunate that. We don't have, while I feel like we pay pretty well for the village that we are in, I don't have to pay U.S. salary rates.
Yeah, that would eat up your $90,000.
That would eat up my $90,000 very
people.
quickly. And I certainly don't mean that, because I like for our employees to feel like they're being well cared for. I mean, that's very important to me. Again, having been on that end where I was the guy out there scrubbing the kennels, I want to make sure that they feel appreciated, that they are getting a fair wage for the community. I try to, make sure that they get other things that they need, whether it's, a proper cell phone or a computer or, a lot of times the guys will ask me for work boots, so I bring them work boots so that they're getting, they feel like there's a bonus, a benefit for them for working for HBHS besides just the salary or the, hourly wage that they're getting when they work at clinics.
Even the goodwill that you've generated in the community, that's got to make those people feel like they're part of that. They're getting that same feeling of being the hero.
They do. I think they do. And, But back to fundraising, I mean, as I said before, we're huge on tourists. We've just started a volunteerism program where I'm trying to recruit not only vet teams, but I'm trying to recruit people that are just interested in animals, much like yourself. People that would like maybe to have a working vacation. You pay your travel, and then I'll try to help you with as much on the other end, get donated housing, get you some tours. But I'm asking that you take part of your vacation and donate it to HBHS. And that really makes people feel invested in the organization because international funds are very hard to raise.
I can't even imagine.
When there's so much need here in the U.S., and I have people tell me that all the time, why should I give to you when I should give to my local shelter? And I said, then I think that's what you should do. You should give to your local shelter because I want you to feel like you are giving to the need that speaks the most to you, the need that speaks to your heart, the need that you see. So what my job is I've got to make people see our need as well. So I do try to recruit people. Hamanasi Resort, Jaguar Reef, all of those resorts along there are fantastic about if they overhear someone in the dining room say they work with animals, they've got Clara Lee's card in their hand. I'm trying to arrange them.
Beautiful cards, by the way.
Thank you.
Those are like keepsakes for your
They
team.
make an impression. I've had people tell me, as I said out in the lobby, they take my card and they keep it in their wallet and they keep it in there for years. And then they think, maybe I'll go do that. And they pull it out and they contact me and say, I've been carrying your card around for a couple of years, but I really think I want to go back to Belize and I'd like to volunteer while I'm there. So again, I'm getting them invested in the organization. And I raise not only money, but I raise supplies. And that is the same thing. And I think a lot of humane societies overlook that. And that's very important to me. If I can raise supplies, then I'm essentially raising money. If I'm raising vaccinations, antibiotics, drapes, suture. If I'm raising those supplies, those are surgeries. I've got a free vet coming down. Now I just need them to be able to have the supplies they need to perform the surgeries. So I've raised money, even though I haven't raised a cent, because the need I have is still going to get done.
Are you reaching out to the manufacturers?
So I reach out to manufacturers. I reach out Expo is huge for me because every single person in that exhibit hall will have my card by the time they leave. And I've already talked to several people about what can I do to get your short-dated product, your outdated product? What can I do to show you the need that we have? And for example, I talked to a lovely woman at Suture Express yesterday and told her about how veterinarians in Belize and really throughout Central America and the Caribbean sometimes use zip ties for their surgeries instead of suture.
Wow.
Yes. Because suture is expensive and hard to come by. They will take zip ties, soak them in alcohol, and use that to tie off a spay. Now, I don't think I even have to explain to you the problems that can create, but for your audience that may be watching that is putting a foreign body, an undissolvable, a non-absorbable foreign body in the abdomen. And a zip tie, which is made of plastic and can have rough edges when you cut it, can then adhere to the body wall, to the intestines, to other organs. I mean, it is a nightmare. But that is their way of keeping expenses down when they're doing these free spay neuter clinics or low cost clinics, or they're trying to spay and neuter a street dog. And so when I found out this was happening, I approached vets that were using that method and said, okay, I'm going to make a commitment to you if you'll make a commitment to me. If I can get you suture, will you stop using that method? And they said, okay.
Sure. That's
sure.
a lot easier.
But then I put the pressure back on me to provide them suture. So I know if I'm not providing suture, then they're, it's very tempting for them to fall back on that zip tie method, which they can go down to the local hardware store and buy very inexpensively and soak in alcohol very inexpensively. But that is one of the problems with that method, besides the obvious, is there's no follow-up. I mean, for the most part, they're doing this on street dogs or dogs for really low-income families, so there's no follow-up. So at any rate, so I approach people, I approach manufacturers, I approach veterinarians, send me the stuff that you're going to throw out. Local hospital, they are fabulous. For my local hospital in Oxford, Mississippi, I have a woman that saves the erythromycin eye ointment. Every time a newborn is born, they put erythromycin eye ointment in their eyes, and then they throw the tube away. Not anymore. They save it for me, and so I use that. I have a small cat rescue at my house, so every kitten that comes in immediately gets erythromycin eye ointment in the eyes for the same reason they put it in the newborns, to sort of as a prophylactic to helping with infections. So
you must have a hard time going through customs, carrying needles and sutures and drugs.
Yes and no. I'm sure that one day I will have a hard time going through customs, but I approach customs just like I do everyone else, with a big smile. I'm usually traveling alone, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I will have somewhere between 7 to 10 huge duffel bags. So, I mean, I create I am a spectacle going through customs. I am, one little blonde girl going through customs with all these bags. But I approach them with a smile. I frequently get the same guys who recognize me from before, and I present it all up and say, this is what I'm doing. And as I said earlier, I will have just as many stuffed animals, school supplies, all of those things in my luggage as I do syringes and drugs. So I present it all up to them. I say, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. They start pulling out stuff, and ask, well, haven't I applied for an exemption, or why haven't I done that? And I said, because I'm happy to pay whatever you decide to charge me. In Belize, they have that power at the airport. They can choose to charge you nothing or $1,000 on the spot. So I said, you're doing your job. You tell me what you think is a fair assessment of this. And the most I have ever paid, was $70 US. I usually wind up paying either nothing or like $10 US or something like that.
You couldn't ship it for that.
But exactly, no, I can't ship it for that. But I also offer the custom employees, do you have children? You do. You have nieces in it. Well, here, let's make sure that they have some stuffed animals. Do you have dogs? You do. Well, do they have collars? Let's find the collars. So, in the U.S. you could never get away with that kind of thing, and I don't think of it as really a bribe. I think they're part of the Belize community that I'm trying to help, and so if I can give them collars, if I can give them some flea and tick medication, if I can give them some dewormer for their dog, then that's what I brought it down for anyway. So again, I really don't have a hard time because I try to be honest and upfront and friendly, and I don't argue with them. And they say, I'm going to have to charge you for this. I say, okay, write me up. And I'll go pay what you want me to pay. So.
You mentioned earlier how this is now expanding. So is this expanding because other communities are getting this word of mouth and seeing it? Or are you going to those communities, or is it some of both?
Some of both. We have HBHS has a really good reputation in Belize. I think. You can never have 100% satisfaction, as we all know. But for the most part, when we enter new villages, when we kind of roll up in our HBHS vehicle, people are coming to me going, we've been waiting for you to get here.
Wow.
I actually had a village say that to me this last trip. They said, we've been waiting for you to get here. We've seen you on the road, going to Maya Center down. We were waiting for you to stop with us. Why haven't you stopped with us before now? So our reputation, because Belize is a small country, and there's a lot of cross-village employment, and so, again, at the resorts where we are in Hopkins, there's several people working at those resorts that live in villages all over. Resorts in Belize tend to work 10 days on and 4 days off. So a lot of people come in, work their 10 days, and then they go home for 4 days, and then it may be a 3-hour bus ride away. So again, they're part of my community, even though they live 3 hours away. So they're going home with the good news, so to speak, and they're talking to their friends and their vets and their animal workers and saying, look what this organization's doing. So, yes, I am trying to work with as many people as possible, but I'm also trying to empower other organizations to either develop or ones that are already formed to do the same thing that we are. And so, again, I am not one to keep supplies on a shelf. If we have suture and you need suture, come get our suture. If we have vaccinations and you need vaccinations, come get our vaccinations. I'm not a hoarder. Although my husband would argue that when he goes down to sees the number of barn cats that we support. But I like to collect things, but I also it's not going to do any good on a shelf. I want them out. I want them being used. I want them, with other organizations. So that's why when I'm at events like this, I'm handing my card out constantly because I'm happy to help other organizations. Again, if I've got a huge supply of drapes and you need drapes, let me get you some drapes. Or, also drugs come in sometimes that really don't apply to me. But they might apply to somebody else that's working with large animals or large cats or, rhinos or, whatever the need is. So I'm always trying to figure out what people's needs are. And I've got a box of this stuff and where can this particular thing go to make it work. So.
And how do you manage that across 2 countries? That's a lot of organization.
It is, and I don't know. I just kind of do it. Again, poor husband has to put up with a lot of boxes in the living room until I've had a chance to sort them. And as you can imagine, I'm pretty good at recruiting friends. I always say I have a good Tom Sawyer effect. I'm always, like, come on over and help me, sort supplies. It'll be fun, help me pack boxes. It's a great time. So, I'm getting them to whitewash the fence for me. So I'm good at recruiting friends and volunteers to come over and just kind of go through stuff with me, and we organize it and I prioritize it and try to send out the stuff that I know has an immediate need and maybe save the stuff that doesn't have an immediate need because it will one day. So that's it. It's just constant networking, constant trying to make sure that I can help people and other organizations get what they need so they are getting the services done.
People contact me from all around the world, and they always ask me, how can I get a job working with big cats or working with animals? And you have found that. So what would your advice be to those people as they're coming out of school?
And I do get asked this a lot as well. And I struggle with it because I don't make anything. I'm doing all of this for free. So I'm probably not a very good example. I'm extremely happy doing what I do, but I've always, for the most part of my life, had some other job that basically I had to work at to pay my bills so that could support my volunteer habit.
Which is actually the advice I give.
Yeah,
get a really good job.
And I need to do it. I keep saying I'm going to write Clara Lee's Rules of Rescue down because I get asked these questions a lot. And I think number one is, if you want to be a rescuer, become a really successful attorney, or go to Wall Street or something like that and make a lot of money and then donate it to organizations, because then you will be the hero and they will do all the dirty work. So that's the smart way to get involved in rescue. Become a successful business person and you don't ever have to touch a mangy dog, and you will be everyone's hero. You will save thousands of lives and it will be great. But if you're not smart enough to do that and you want to go the route that I have gone, then to try to figure out which area of animal rescue you want to be in, because they're all different areas, and start as a volunteer. And that and nobody really wants to hear that because they want a job, and I get that. I really, really do. I understand that you want a job, but start as a volunteer. And because sometimes what you think you want to do isn't what you want to do. And if you're tied into a job doing that, then again, it makes it more complicated. Or sometimes you start as a volunteer and you go, yes, I really love, working with big cats, but I also really love working with hoofed animals, and I, want to be able to do both. So if you start as a volunteer, then it really is opens up more opportunities for you, because as a volunteer, you have a little more flexibility. So if you can find a way to do that, that would be my advice.
I think that's great advice. We're down into the last few minutes of the show here, which it always goes by so fast.
Goes by fast, right?
What would you like for people to know about you or your work that you haven't touched on yet?
I guess really not anything. I think that when I meet people, I realize that I can be very overwhelming. And so I'm trying to be cognizant of that. And I know that I have a personality that people either tend to really like, or some people just, I'm just completely turn them off because I am very aggressive. I think that part of that may have come from having been an athlete my whole life. When I was younger, I was a professional tennis player, and then I was a boxer. And so,
Wow.
With sports comes a certain amount of confidence. You have to believe that you're the best when you play sports, or you've already lost before you ever start competing. So I get amused sometimes when I'm watching sports on TV and they talk about how cocky that athlete is, or that athlete thinks he's the best. And I'm like, well, of course he does, because if he doesn't think he's the best before he goes in, then he's already lost and he won't be a very good athlete. So when I go into I take that education that I learned in sports as well as communications. When I go into, say, talk to a private donor, I have to think that my program is the best in the world. It's the best one, and I'm trying to sell it to them. I want them to understand that HBHS is the best program they could ever possibly invest in, and this is why. So that for the most part, I think people do appreciate that, but sometimes it does turn people off, and that's okay. I mean, that's all right. Move on, and hopefully you've been able to learn something from me. I've certainly learned things from people that I liked as well as disliked, so, move on from there. But,
and I think confidence is always sexy because people want to feel confident, and if you come across confident toward them, I think it inspires them to bring that out in themselves. So I think it's always a good thing. People that are turned off by it may be just intimidated by it, but they probably secretly really admire it.
Well, and another thing that I think has made me a successful fundraiser is that I think people want to be on a winning team. I do not like the help this poor pitiful animal campaigns. Can't stand them, and I never ever post a picture of a pitiful animal unless I have an after picture. I love to do a before and after, because again, that's a win. This is what HBHS was able to do with this animal that we rescued, and here it is now. That is a win. But I always stress our positives. I never send out a newsletter saying, if you don't fund us, we're gonna die. No.
I don't know how that would ever work.
But yet that is still so predominant in this industry. I mean, I get things in the mail all the time, with the little sad puppy on the front going, if you don't help me, I'm going to die. And isn't this terrible? I toss it right in the recycling bin. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't want to be, I deal with that personally on a day-to-day basis. So I'm even more in touch with it than the average person is. But I really think that people like to be part of a winning team. They want to see that you're enthusiastic about what you do. You raised a lot of money last year, but look what you did with it. So let me be a part of that. Wow. Instead of giving to this organization that's struggling and may go out of business if I don't give them money, maybe I can donate to this organization because they're actually getting results. I know that sounds contrary to what the organization, the industry should be about, but yet it's human nature. We want to be part of something positive instead of part of something that's struggling and negative. So I try to approach everything that way. I try to approach everything as being very positive, being very aggressive, being very confident. I certainly have my moments. I'm not made of steel, and I do have moments where things hurt me to the core, and I suffer from compassion fatigue just like everyone else. But I've been doing this a long time. I've learned how to deal with it.
Pace yourself.
I try to pace myself. My husband is an incredible man that is supportive of me. I know he wants to stab me a lot, and frequently he goes, "Where's all our money going?" But at the same time, he loves me and wants me to be successful and wants me to be happy, and he sees that this makes me happy, so he's happy to support it. And then, of course, he catches all that, as your partner does. He catches all of that. Woe is me. Oh my God, I don't think I can do it again. He catches the sadness, as do my closest friends. They catch that. What am I going to do? But I just don't hold on to that very long. Usually within 24 hours, I've managed to work through it, and I'm on to the next thing. So,
you told me an amazing story out in the hall, and you showed me a video, and I'm wondering if there's any way you could play your phone and show it up to the camera there, and I'll tell you when you get close enough for it to really show.
Sure. Well, let me tell the story while I'm looking for it. Oh, good. It's still right there. The Belize Zoo, as I mentioned, they're actually a sanctuary for native Belize animals that have been injured and can't be rehabilitated in some way. And they have a jaguar rehabilitation program. They have all native animals, and they have lots of birds. But one of the things that they did a couple of years ago is there was a resort in Belize that had permission to have animals in enclosures on their property, and they went out of business. Well, the story varies. They either went out of business or they went on vacation. I don't know what happened. The point is that animals that were supposed to be in their care were deserted. And by the time the Belize Zoo got wind of it and traveled to the south part of the country, all of the animals had perished except for one black jaguar who was emaciated, had almost no hair, had somehow survived really on rainwater. And so they named him Lucky Boy and brought him back to the zoo. had Cornell University come down and do an assessment on him, and immediately started treatment. They kept him in a relatively small enclosure while they were treating him. It was just like you would a hospital room, so they could monitor him easily as they were building a larger enclosure for him. And he has now become this large, beautiful, very gentle jaguar that is definitely a high point of not only their sanctuary where people come in to see, but part of their education program. And they have before and after pictures of him. So, yes, and I immediately asked if I could adopt him because I thought, oh, this is perfect, a large animal, a large cat that I can call mine. So,
yeah,
so
she said call her. She did not take the jaguar home.
No, I did not take the jaguar home. He lives in his lovely enclosure with his own pool at the Belize Zoo, but I do make an effort to go by and have some quality time with him every time I'm there.
So
and would you like to try to show this video? Yes, okay. Here we go. Tell me.
And then if you can just move it up to the lens, up a little bit.
Isn't he a beautiful boy?
I just love that.
I do too. And again, I just can't say enough wonderful things about Sharon and Humberto and Tim, the young man who has also worked with HBHS in the past, but now he works with the jaguars at the zoo. And they are some of the most caring and compassionate and patient people that I've ever met. With wildlife in particular, you have to be patient when you're working with any animals. With wildlife, you have to be so patient and so consistent, and they have done an amazing job with all of the animals in their care.
Well, you have been amazing, and it's been so delightful to get to know you. Thank you for taking out your time today to be with us.
My pleasure.
Everyone, this has been the Cat Chat Show. You can find us at thecatchatshow.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Till next time, bye! Well, what I didn't even realize until I was talking to her after the interview is that we are more connected than we thought. She had been helpful in the rescue of the cats from Catherine Twiss, and you'll read about Catherine Twiss in Animal Underworld, a hoarder of cats, and she helped rescue just truckloads of lions and tigers and ligers from her that ended up going to Cougar Haven and other facilities. And then when Cougar Haven went under, we rescued Freckles and Simba and Alex. So you may remember those cats, and turns out we're all connected. How about that? See you next week. Bye.